Hi guys. Tonight I wanted to talk about nuances. Now, there are a lot of situations that are going on right now. A lot of debates are going on the home front and even on the national scale, and even on the international scale in some cases. And in a lot of these cases, it seems that a lot of people wanted to try to break it down into being just about one issue. Uh, all things aside, it has to be about this one thing. For example, one issue that's come up is the creation of jobs here in America. But at the same time, we talk about the creation of jobs, we also talk about more reliance on clean energy. Now, there's about 10 million people who work in America in the petroleum industry, maybe about 200,000 who work in the coal industry. And when you talk to on a nationwide level about less reliance on coal and oil and more reliance on more environmentally friendly energy like solar power, um, how does that resonate to that person who has spent their entire life feeding their family um, by working in the oil industry? Now all of a sudden you're saying you want to save jobs, but you want to have more reliance on clean energy instead. So there's those nuances to the issue. Do you want to create jobs at the expense of clean environment? Um, but one of them that particularly strikes me right now is hate crimes. Hate crimes, of course, are horrific. Nobody should experience that. Here in Cincinnati, in a couple of places, there have been some. Withrow High School recently, I think it was about 3 days ago, had some anti-Semitic vandalism on their property. Now, of course, this is a bad thing. This is a horrible thing. But then we stop and think about it because wouldn't any sort of vandalism be illegal anyway? Uh, in this case, they had put swastikas and other hate symbols on there. But even if they had put kittens and butterflies, it would still be vandalism. They would still be uh, illegally vandalizing property. Is it right to not only prosecute and charge for the crime itself, but also the mentality of the person behind the crime? This is where we get into a really sticky gray area because right now it's not illegal, nor can we really monitor a person's thoughts. They could clearly, of course, be wrong or be immoral thoughts, but if all they are thoughts and they don't manifest themselves any other way, there's no way that we could even know that they're there. And if they acted on it in a legal way, for example, a person who has violent thoughts who expresses it to a therapist but does not act on it in a violent way, then there's still nothing illegal going on. There's nothing wrong or harmful. It's a person who has thoughts, who has feelings, who has beliefs that maybe we would disagree with, but is it wrong? Now, if they choose to act on it, of course, clearly it's wrong, but does their state of mind should their state of mind have any effect on how the case is prosecuted? Murder is murder, and it's already illegal. It doesn't matter what you're thinking as that murders happen. Not only that, but thought is almost impossible to prove. Um, if someone did something, yes, in a lot of cases you can, but in a lot of other cases, there's no way you can prove that a person had something in mind, even if it appeared to be potentially racially motivated. Sometimes there's just no way to know, and definitely no way to prove in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt that you know what another person was thinking, unless they clearly spelled out their motivations. So, since thinking something is not illegal, why should it something be more illegal or prosecuted more strongly just because of what a person was thinking while they were doing it? I don't know. That's one of the nuances. Um, and I think another one of the big ones that's going on right now is healthcare. There are a lot of benefits to a single payer healthcare system, primarily being that we're one of the few countries in the world that doesn't have it. I think we're the only developed country that doesn't have it. But then there are a lot of nuances that come to it. Like, what exactly should be covered by this? Should it be just the bare baseline expectations of preventative care and potentially life saving? And if it is life saving, how much life saving is there when you consider that a lot of life prolonging treatments and medications really are only going to extend life by a certain amount and maybe not even to the same quality that it was before. What about surgeries or procedures and treatments that are not strictly necessary but could improve uh, lifestyle. For example, liposuctions or a rhinoplasty for someone who has sleep apnea. They'll live if they have sleep apnea, but certainly they might be a little bit more comfortable with it. One of the few ways that we legally discriminate here in America is the assumption that a person's personal hygiene will say something about their how well they're going to do in the workforce. If you take someone who is well dressed and well presented, they're more likely to get a job in an interview than someone who hasn't showered and hasn't groomed themselves. So, could you make the argument that someone is more likely to be successful, and therefore it's a hardship on them if they don't have something like oral surgery to get their teeth straightened? So, some things that we think of as cosmetic, since we do live in a society where appearance is important, could those things be considered essential for living here? Now, in the United States, we have a ridiculous amount of health spending. I think I saw the report that says that we spend about close to $10,000 a year per person on care. Now, if we were to distribute this $10,000 evenly among everybody, that's a ridiculous amount of money. That would be, well, I'm going to just say more than a quarter of the income that I personally make. So if we were to distribute these costs evenly across the board, that's a lot. And it's one of those things where, yes, we want to be able to say morally that looking out for the health care of other people within our society is a moral imperative. And moral imperative is fine until you start asking these other questions and putting actual dollar figures to it. The World Health Organization estimates that the actual annual spending that a person should have in U.S. adjusted dollars is about $94 a year. Okay, that's not a lot when you compare it to the amount of spending, especially out-of-pocket spending, that we do here in America. So how much care does someone actually need as opposed to what's elective? I don't know that there's a good way to answer that and quantify that. And even if we did all get together and decide, yes, a single payer system is best, standardized healthcare like this should be the expected on a moral level, then on a logical level, how do you get through it? So with all the stuff that's flying around these days, conversations about abortion and about uh, uh, about hate crimes, uh, these are clearly bad things, but there's so many little things that go into it that warrant investigation. And if we limit it to just being about one thing, if we say that the only question about standardized healthcare and subsidized healthcare is a moral question, then that's ignoring a ridiculous amount of conversation that has to go into it. And it shuts down especially people who might oppose it for what they feel are logical reasons. If they get painted in the light of, clearly you must be an immoral person, you must be a cold-hearted person if you wouldn't pay for the health care of other people. I think it warrants more conversation than that. And certainly, you're not going to win over someone like me who's on the fence about a lot of issues if you don't talk to them and approach them in a way that doesn't insult their intelligence. So, as we have these conversations, and as you have these conversations with each other, please have that respect for each other and realize that everybody is doing what they think is best. And if we don't respect that, and if we don't treat them in the educated sense, that they have put some thought into this, that they're doing what they believe is right, everybody thinks they're the good guy, then we're not going to get anywhere. We're just going to vilify each other. And that's where dialogue and conversation stops. So let's keep this going. Let's be respectful of each other, and let's talk about the more difficult things, and let's help everybody understand things that honestly they may have trouble feeling like they can ask for information on. So until tomorrow, have a good night.